Okay, so intro to story problems.
Can you make a
Yes, yes, I what?
can you make a PowerPoint?
I
That wasn't
I
last
write a
year.
paper and I print it, and then I have to read off and present it.
Okay, so first we're going to go over the terms and story problems.
I wasn't writing no
Oh,
questions.
you see it? Better with or without light? That's what, with, without, without. All right. Okay, so terms and their translations. All right. So if you see any of these following terms, you know they mean addition. Okay. So if you see the word sum, or if you see the word plus, or they're just really blatant and you just see added to. Okay. Or if you see the term more than. You kind of put a little star next to each one. Or if you see increased by. Or if you see total. All of those are just roundabout ways of telling you you're going to be adding something. Okay, now with subtraction, you're going to see the word difference. It could be difference of, difference between, but you'll see difference. They'll just come out and say minus sometimes. Okay. So instead of added to, it'll be subtracted from. You might see that. Okay. You might see, instead of more than, you might see less than. Okay. So instead of increased by, you might see decreased by. Or you might just see less. Instead of less than, you might just see less. Okay. Now for multiplication, you might see product. Or you might see just times. They may just come right out and tell you to multiply. So you might just see multiply. You might see twice, which is their way of telling you to multiply by 2. Or you might even see the word of, OF. Where you might say 1/3 of 58. That means you're going to multiply 1/3 in 58. So 1/3 of 58, just 1/3 times 58. Okay. Now for division, you might see the word quotient. Or they may just come out and tell you to divide, so you might just see divide. Okay. You might see into. 8 goes into 64. Okay, you might see ratio. Or instead of divide, you may just see divided by. They may just be really upfront with it and tell you divided by. All right, leave that up there for a few more seconds. All right. Or for equality, it may just come up, yes. Oh, sure. Leave that up there. Oh, okay. Leave it up there for a few more seconds if you're still writing. All right. Anyone else still writing this one? All right. Okay, so for equality, they may just come out and say equals. It may say gives or will give you. Okay. You may see is, was, or in some cases should be. 8 plus 4 is 12. Okay. You may see yields. You may see amounts to. Oh, thank you. Sometimes you might see represents. Or instead of is, you might see is the same as. Okay. You don't have to memorize them. It's just you want to be able to know them if you see them. All right. Anyone still writing? All right. So let's say, for example, the difference of 9x and 8x is 107. Okay. Now, if you saw just of, that would be multiplication. But because you see difference of, you know that's going to be subtraction. So means subtraction. Okay, so difference of 9x and 8x, just 9x minus 8x, Remember, is means equal. 107. Okay. Now that is will come in very handy when you start with percentages. Okay. So our 9x minus 8x equals 107. If we combine those two, you just get x equals 107. This 9x minus 8x is just 1x. All right. Any questions on that one? Okay. So those are where they are kind of straightforward. Sometimes you have to mess around with them a little bit. That one may take up a whole page. I'll just go ahead and... All right, so let's say for our next example, three more than the difference between 6x and 5x is equal to the difference of 1 over 12 and 1 over 6.
So when you write, it goes completely blank for us, so.
I know, that's why I try to
Very cool.
lean back just long enough and let you catch up. Okay, so you kind of get it and you break it down little by little. So when you see difference between 6x and 5x, that just means 6x minus 5x. Like I say, it could say between, but when you see 3 more than the difference of 6x and 5x, that more than lets you know you're going to add 3 to it. More than the difference between 6x and 5x. Okay, so that's just going to give you, well, you don't really need the parentheses there. 6x minus 5x plus 3. So it's 3 more than the difference. Okay. Now that is, we know that that is equal to. So 6x minus 5x plus 3 equals, remember that's your is, the difference of 1 over 12 and 1 over 6. And we know that difference is just subtraction. So yeah, 1 over 12 minus 1 over 6. Okay. Difference of 1 over 12 and 1 over 6. Okay. So we just converted this story problem to an actual equation. And now we can just go ahead and solve it. So let me rewrite the actual equation. 6x minus 5x plus 3 equals 1/12 minus 1/6. Now, if you wanted to, you can multiply both of these by 2 and then combine the fractions, or you can multiply each term by the least common denominator, which in this case is 12, and get rid of the fractions all in one swoop. How you solve it is up to you. Whichever one is most comfortable. But first, I'll combine those two. So 6x minus 5x is just 1x. So x plus 3 equals 1/12 minus 1/6. Okay, so you could multiply each term by the least common denominator, which is 12. But you can just multiply 6 by 2 and make it 12, and 12 times 1 is 12, so that's the smallest number they have in common. Okay, so we have 12 times x plus 12 times 3 equals 12 times 1/12. Oh, kind of separate that a little bit. Minus 12 times 1/6. Okay, so you have 12x plus 36 equals, those two 12s will cancel each other out. Anything divided by itself is just going to be 1. So you have 1 minus 6 goes into 6 one time. 6 goes into 12 twice. So 2 times 1 is just 2. Okay. So now we can just solve for x and don't have to worry about any fractions getting in the way. Okay, so you have 12x plus 36 equals 1 minus 2 is -1. Subtract 36 from both sides. So we have 12x equals -37. Divide both sides by 12. Anything divided by itself would just give you 1. So you have x equals -37 over 12. All right. Any questions on that one? So you want to look for those key words and terms. We'll move that over a little bit. Leave that up for a few more seconds. Anyone still writing? All right. So let's say, for example, the sum of two numbers is -61. Okay, so one number is 35 more than the other. Okay, so we want to find both numbers. Clean that. Make that a little, there we go. Okay, so find the numbers. So we know that if you add those two numbers together, it's going to equal negative 61. So the first number plus the second number is going to equal negative 61. Okay? We just don't know what those two numbers are. Okay? We know that one number is 35 more than the other. So we'll let x equal the first number. Okay? So if our first number is x and the other number is 35 more than, you know that more than means plus. So we know our second number is going to be x plus 35. So if our first number plus our second number is negative 61, that means that x plus 35 equals negative 61. Any questions on that step? All right. Okay, so once we get it there, we just go ahead and solve for x. Okay, so you have x. You can drop that parentheses because everything's positive here. So x plus 35 is negative 61. You can go ahead and combine those two terms. So we have 2x plus 35 is negative 61. Okay, subtract 35 from both sides. Okay, so that gives us 2x equals negative 96. Okay. Divide both sides by 2. Oh, I can put that underneath it. That means x will equal negative 48. Okay, which gives us our first number. Okay. Now for our second number, yes.
How come you want to use the distributed property in the parentheses?
Oh, you can if you have x plus 35. Uh-oh, let me clean that up a little bit. That's the same as saying 1 times x plus 35. So if you kind of distribute the 1, that's why the parentheses disappeared on that one. All right, so we have our first number. So to find our second number, that's x plus 35. Which means we just plug in negative 48 plus 35. Means you have negative 13, which is your second number. All right. Any questions on that one? Oh, sure.
Where did you say the ebook was online?
If you click right where it says syllabus, you should see the link to it right on top. On the syllabus on the left-hand side, not in the top module. All right. Anyone still writing? All right. Oh. Okay, so what if we have, if a package of 8 apples costs $3.20, how much is the cost of a single apple? Okay, so some of these are pretty straightforward. Oh. Okay, so let's say we let A equal an apple. Just to kind of convert it a little bit, we have package of 8 apples is $3.20. Okay, so if we did decide to convert it, 8 apples is just 8A. Remember, is equals. And 320 is just that, 320. Okay, so you may have some questions that may give you the story problem and say, which one is the right equation? They may give you 3 or 4 different equations and have you pick one. Okay, so we have 8A equals 320. If you wanted to, remember that 320 is the same as 3.2. So you can leave the 0 off at the end if you want to. Okay, so we divide both sides by 8. So A is equal to 3.2 divided by 8. We're going to have to convert this to decimals if we want the actual money value. Okay. So we have a decimal with 1 space. So we know that if we multiply by 10, that decimal will go over 1. So multiply both by 10. So that means we'll have 3.2 over 8 times 10 over 10. Oh, bring that up some. So we know that decimal will go over 1. So that'll be 32 over 80. Okay. So instead of decimals, we'll have just 2 whole numbers that we can simplify. Okay, so we have 32. Remember, 32 is 16 times 2. And 80 is 16 times 5. So we can cancel out. Which means the 16s cancel out. So our answer is just 2/5, which is true, but it doesn't give us a money value. So now we have to convert that fraction to decimals. Okay, so if you remember, I'll do that over here.